Good day, I am Zygmunt Bauman, a Polish-British sociologist whose life flowed through war zones, revolutions, and the shifting tides of modernity. I didn't just write about the world, I lived through its disintegration and reinvention. I observed how the solid certainties of the past dissolved into a liquid modernity, unstable, fast-moving, and full of contradictions. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by choice, uncertain in your relationships, or rootless in your identity, you've already stepped into my world. Welcome to Socio-Exploration. Together, let's wade through the liquidity of modern life, where nothing is fixed and everything is up for negotiation. I was born on November 19, 1925 in Poznań, Poland, to Jewish parents. I witnessed anti-Semitism, fled the Nazis, and joined the Polish army in exile. My life began with instability. Displacement was my first teacher. I later found refuge in ideas, discovering that thought, too, could be both home and rebellion. I studied philosophy and sociology in the Soviet-influenced academic world, writing in the Marxist tradition, but dogma never satisfied me. When I emigrated to the UK in 1971, after being expelled from Poland in an anti-Semitic purge, I reinvented myself. I left ideology behind and began thinking about freedom, individuality, and fear in a world that refused to stand still. My life was never about fame. I settled in Leeds, became a professor, and worked tirelessly, even into my 90s. My wife, Janina Bauman, a Holocaust survivor and writer, shared in my intellectual journey. We lived quietly, but my books spoke loudly. I watched the world grow faster, lonelier, and more anxious, and I tried to make sense of it. I coined the term liquid modernity to describe our current age. In the past, life was solid. Careers, marriages, identities were stable, but now everything melts. Jobs are short-term, relationships are disposable, identities are fluid. We drift, consume, adapt, always moving, never anchoring. In a liquid world, the greatest fear is to stop flowing. I lived a long life, filled with movement, questions, and pages. On January 9th, 2017, in the quiet of Leeds, England, my body gave in to the natural end. I died at the age of 91, surrounded not by spectacle, but by the rhythm of thought that never ceased in me. My remains rest in the Cottingley Hall Cemetery in Leeds, West Yorkshire, England, among the modest and the unknown, not far from where I wrote my final words. But death did not silence me. The questions I posed still echo. What is freedom in an age where everything is fluid? Can love survive in a world of instant swipe lefts and fear-driven borders? I did not write to give comfort. I wrote to hold up a mirror so you could see the age you live in. Look carefully. You are already inside my sociology. I never claimed to offer blueprints, only maps of uncertainty. The world I observed was melting beneath our feet. Once solid structures like tradition, identity, and community dissolved into a fluid, fast-paced modernity. In trying to name this condition, I spoke of liquid modernity, a time of freedom without stability, movement without direction. From this flowed other truths. How individuals were left to craft themselves alone, individualization. How we began to consume not just goods, but meaning, consumer society. How society quietly discarded those who couldn't keep pace, wasted lives, and how fear, more than reason, came to shape our politics and hearts. Fear and insecurity. These were not just theories, they were attempts to describe the water we're all swimming in. Theory 1. Liquid modernity. The world is no longer solid, it flows. In the past, life was solid. People were born into roles, religion, class, community, that offered structure and stability. There was predictability in life's path, even if it was narrow. But in today's world, that solidity has dissolved. We now live in what I called liquid modernity, a time when nothing holds its shape for long. Careers, relationships, even identities are flexible, transient, and constantly reinvented. This liquidity gives us freedom, but at a cost. Without anchors, we drift. We are told to be whoever we want, yet given no lasting support. The pressure to adapt perform, and choose never ends. Life becomes a constant state of uncertainty, full of anxiety, disconnection, and loneliness. In liquid modernity, we are no longer guided by tradition or institutions. We are left to swim alone in shifting waters. Theory 2, individualization. You are on your own, but it was never supposed to be this way. In liquid modernity, society tells you that you are the author of your own life story. Success, that's your responsibility. Failure, also yours. You must build your own identity, find your own happiness, navigate your own path, alone. But this wasn't always the case. In the past, institutions like family, religion, or community gave people a framework, a safety net, and a sense of belonging. Now those structures have retreated. We are more free than ever before, but also more isolated. When things fall apart, we blame ourselves, even when the causes are systemic. This is what I called individualization, the shifting of collective problems onto individual shoulders. It looks like empowerment, but often feels like abandonment. In a world where you're told you can be anything, it's easy to feel like you're not enough. Theory 3, consumer society. We shop, therefore we are. In the age of liquid modernity, consumerism is not just an activity, it is a way of being. We no longer define ourselves by what we believe or contribute, but by what we buy, wear, and display. Even love has become a marketplace. We swipe, match, unmatch, treating people like products. Identity itself becomes a brand we must constantly market and update to stay relevant. In this consumer society, satisfaction replaces meaning. Commitments are short-lived. Nothing is built to last, not products, not jobs, not even relationships. When everything is made to be upgraded or replaced, people too become disposable. We stop being citizens who shape society and become consumers who shop for temporary fulfillment, and in that process we lose something deep, our sense of connection, purpose, and belonging. Theory 4. Wasted lives. Not everyone can keep up in a liquid world. In a society that values speed, flexibility, and constant reinvention, not everyone can keep up. The migrant who has no home, the elderly person deemed unproductive, the unemployed worker whose skills are no longer needed, these lives are quietly pushed aside. I called them wasted lives, not because they lack value, but because modern society no longer sees a use for them. Progress, we are told, lifts everyone, but in reality it produces its own human debris. These people are not failed individuals, they are the casualties of systems that discard what they can't exploit. In our obsession with efficiency and innovation, we forget our duty to care. Wasted lives is a reminder. True civilization is measured not by how fast it moves, but by how it treats those left behind. Theory 5. Fear and insecurity. We fear the stranger, but the stranger is within us. In the liquid world, uncertainty is the only constant, and uncertainty breeds fear. We fear the unfamiliar, refugees, migrants, those who speak, dress, or believe differently. But these fears are often mirrors, not windows. They reflect our inner anxieties about jobs, identity, safety, and meaning. The stranger outside becomes a convenient symbol for the chaos we feel within. Politicians and media seize upon these fears. They promise protection through exclusion, walls, borders, surveillance. But real security doesn't come from shutting others out. It comes from building trust, community, and solidarity. I believe that only through shared humanity, not manufactured enemies, can we overcome the deep insecurity of our age. I wrote not to provide easy answers, but to question the taken-for-granted realities of our time. My books trace the transformation of modern society, from solid structures to a fluid, fast-moving world I called liquid modernity. I explored how this shift affects every part of life, our identities, relationships, politics, and sense of belonging. Across decades of writing, I returned again and again to one theme: how freedom, when stripped of security and solidarity, can turn into isolation and fear. Through these works, I tried to illuminate the invisible pressures shaping our lives and to ask whether another way is still possible. First, Liquid Modernity, 2000. In this book, I introduced the central metaphor of my later work, liquid modernity. I argued that the once solid structures of life, careers, communities, ideologies, have melted. We now live in a world where everything is in flux. Flexibility is demanded, permanence is feared, and individuals are left to navigate an endless sea of choices alone. This freedom may appear liberating, but it creates deep anxiety and a sense of drifting without direction or support. We are free to choose, yet burdened by the pressure to constantly reinvent ourselves in a world that never stops shifting. 2. Modernity and the Holocaust, 1989. Many view the Holocaust as a rupture in civilization, but I saw it differently. I argued that the Holocaust was not an aberration, but a logical outcome of modernity's darkest potential. It was made possible not by chaos, but by order, through bureaucracy, rational planning, and the systematic dehumanization of victims. It showed how evil can be cold, calculated, and frighteningly efficient. The same tools that promise progress and reason also enabled genocide. This book was a warning. Modern civilization contains within it the capacity for destruction, masked by routine and obedience. Third Identity, 2004. In the past, identities were largely given by birth, class, religion, or tradition. But in the liquid modern world, identity has become a personal project. We no longer inherit who we are. We construct it. We assemble ourselves like a playlist, selecting, curating, constantly editing. This freedom to choose our identity is appealing, but it is also exhausting. Without a fixed reference point, we are left constantly asking, who am I? Who should I be? Identity, I argued, has become a lifelong task, marked more by uncertainty than stability. 4. Consuming Life, 2007. In Consuming Life, I examined how the logic of consumerism has seeped into every corner of our existence. We no longer just consume products. We consume experiences, relationships, even identities. Dating apps turn love into a market. Commitments are replaced by convenience. People fear becoming outdated as much as their gadgets. In this world, everything is temporary and replaceable, even ourselves. I warned that a society built on consumption ultimately consumes the very values, loyalty, depth, care that once gave life meaning. 5. Strangers at Our Door, 2016. My final essays reflected on the refugee crisis that gripped Europe and much of the world. I challenged the narrative that migrants are threats or invaders. Instead, I urged readers to examine the fears projected onto these strangers. What do they reveal about our own insecurities and failures? I argued that fear is often manipulated by politicians and media to divide rather than unite. True security, I maintained, comes not from exclusion, but from solidarity. In a world obsessed with walls, I called for empathy and for bridges. I didn't preach from a mountaintop. I whispered from the margins. I showed that modernity did not liberate us. It liquefied us. We float in freedom, but drown in anxiety. Still, I believe in dialogue, in hope, in the possibility of a world that chooses connection over consumption. If these thoughts moved you, follow Socio-Exploration, like this video, and click the bell icon. Let's keep thinking, reading, and swimming together. Thank you, and have a great day.